Germany and Britain have signed a wide-ranging friendship treaty aimed at strengthening relations strained by the UK's departure from the European Union. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer signed the document in London. It includes a mutual assistance clause requiring each country to help defend the other in the event of an attack. The deal also reduces trade barriers and bolsters school exchange programme. Here's the German Chancellor talking about his political and personal reasons for pursuing the deal.
Today, we are opening a new chapter in German-British relations. We are responding together to the new great challenges of our times. To my great and lasting personal regret, the United Kingdom has left the European Union. Russia is shaking up the European security architecture, and transatlantic relations are changing in a way not seen for a long time. Under these new conditions, we want to secure the freedom, the security, and the prosperity of our two countries with a treaty that we have signed today.
Our correspondent, Birgit Maas, was at that press conference in London and joins us now. Welcome, Birgit. So what was the main message the two leaders wanted to get across?
Phil, we're here slightly north of London in Stevenage, which is the home to a big Airbus plant, Airbus, the defence giant. And that is a symbolic location because what stands out for me is really the defence aspect of the treaty. And it corresponds with the treaty itself, where there is a line about a threat to one country is a threat to another country. And the fact that two NATO members feel it's necessary to put this line into a friendship treaty really does say something about the geopolitical context. Also, what's really important is the alliance within Europe. So it's not only Germany and the UK, it's also, and what was mentioned here in the press conference, is also France. These three countries show leadership in Europe. They're sending a message that they are standing behind Ukraine and that they are close together, that Europe is close together. It's a message, I think, to Russia as well as the US, even though that wasn't mentioned in this press context. But, slight caveat, there is also, Friedrich Merz was asked about Patriot missile systems, and there's also clear that there is a dependency on the US. He could not, as a key ally, say how and when these missiles can be delivered. So yes, Europe making a stand, but without the US, it's not possible.
OK, so defence, trade and school exchanges are all part of this deal. Talk us through its significance.
Well, yes, slightly different priorities, I think, for the two countries, UK and Germany. So what Friedrich Merz has stressed, what's important is, for example, for school groups to come and visit each other's countries more easily. Also, there was a mention of a direct rail link between the UK and Germany. I think generally it's this aspect of cultural exchange and bringing people closer together. Of course, also that easier business cooperation that I think is important for both countries. Now, for the UK, it's migration. That's a really key issue for Keir Starmer here at home. It's a vexed issue for him. He wants to reduce the number of people, of refugees that are crossing the channel in small boats, and he welcomes a proposed change in the German law that makes it easier to target these people smugglers. So slightly different priorities, I think, for the two countries.
And a quick word about the UK political priorities there. The Brexit vote was 9 years ago. Relations with Europe is still a toxic political issue in the UK. Government critics are bound to accuse Sir Keir Starmer of trying to rejoin the EU by the back door.
It's really interesting, Phil, because in the general public, it's not seen as critical. So Brexit, that's clear in polls time and again, is not seen as a success. And a majority of British people would even theoretically like to rejoin the European Union. However, that's really not at the table at all, even though Keir Starmer fought for staying within the EU. He's not a Brexiteer. He was always a Remainer. But nobody wants to open that Pandora's box again. So it's much less controversial within the public, I think, to have closer relations with the European Union, bilateral relations with France and Germany, than to really start any negotiations to rejoin. That's not on the cards whatsoever in the near future.
Thanks, Birgit. Birgit Mass in London.
All right, we'll pull in our chief political editor now, Michaela Kuffner. She's been following this meeting for us. Michaela, the leaders of the UK and Germany, they're giving a joint press conference. What's the main message that's coming from both of these leaders?
That this is a treaty that is looking into the future, making Europe safer, and at the same time delivering for ordinary Brits and Germans also in economic terms. It sounds a bit like trying to square the circle, and that's exactly what these two leaders are trying to do. There is a deliberate attempt to stress that clause on curbing migration. Germany is committed to introduce a law that will outlaw transporting people across Germany with the intent for them to travel on to Britain, also storing certain equipment. And that is something that the British public will be looking at. But the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz was a bit more blunt. He said, look, Russia's at the door. Relations with the US are getting more difficult. And this is a treaty that pins down the intent by both countries to assist each other, but also to introduce defense as a way of producing growth, producing jobs. And of course, then there was a reference to a similar treaty between France and Britain, where the ink is just drying as we speak as well, which puts in place the E3, those three European countries, although Britain has left the European Union. So France, Britain and Germany as a pillar of strength, countries also stabilizing the overarching security mechanism, which is NATO. But NATO, of course, which is suffering from some question marks over the Trump administration.
Am I understanding you right then, Michaela, that the treaty, the bilateral treaty today is somewhat of an insurance policy, if you will, in case NATO doesn't step in when it should?
Well, yes. At the same time, when you look at the small print, so to say, and read through, the commitment this treaty encapsulates is that both countries will assist each other. It doesn't quantify what that means. In the European Union context is by what countries can deliver. That still includes a bit of a political formula in terms of political will to assist other countries. And NATO pretty much is an assistance package that kicks into force very swiftly with established motions, established equipment, joint maneuvers as well. So it's a very different level. But there's a lot of political symbolism in here aimed towards Russia, and also backed up by this upscaling of military development, but also production being ramped up, which is supposed to really talk Vladimir Putin out of any ideas he might be getting about pushing further into Europe and bringing war further inland here.
So we've got a friendship treaty, a promise of closer ties between both of these countries. I'm wondering, though, is this for the UK? Is it a way for it to rejoin the European Union, but to do it through the back door?
The short answer is no, because this short treaty, it's about 15 pages long, doesn't encapsulate what underpins the European Union. That's free movement of goods and people. It's joint tax systems to some degree. It is joint trade standards. So that's everything Britain has shaken off. None of this really is in this treaty, so it can't be anywhere near a substitute. But it does show that the whole security prism of cooperation is creating a new and much closer alliance, particularly between those three countries, France, Germany and Britain, and that stabilizes Europe overall. Okay, DW's Michaela Kuffner with the latest here in Berlin on this new friendship treaty between the UK and Germany. Michaela, thank you.